Bitcoin can be very intimidating. I know this, having been in Bitcoin over a decade. I've watched hundreds, if not thousands, of Bitcoin videos. And Bitcoin is not something that you can explain to a 5-year-old. So if you're having a hard time grasping it and understanding it, just know that that's okay. And also just know that you really don't have to understand everything about Bitcoin in order to start harnessing its power in your financial life. And I would say also in the future in your transactional freedom life. I think one of the things, and I talk about this a lot on this channel, one of the things that's very difficult, I think, for new Bitcoiners, this next wave of adoption, what we call the early majority, most of Bitcoiners in the space now are what we call early adopters. It's kind of that first 15% of adoption that are not afraid of, learning a new piece of software or buying a new piece of hardware or adjusting things in their daily financial lives, or just being generally open-minded. There's a certain mindset that early adopters have, but we're moving, and I would argue that we're actually in this stage now where we're in the early majority phase. And those of you guys that watch my content that may be part of the FIRE movement, maybe you've been in Bitcoin for a while, you're just trying to dip your toes into it, you're trying to figure out how to integrate it with your personal finances. By the way, I'm Brad, and YouTube is telling me that I'm talking to 30 to 55-year-olds who are into personal finance, maybe financial independence, retire early, and or Bitcoin, and are trying to pursue, some sort of wealth building. So that what we're doing on this channel basically is trying to bring together personal finance into your daily Bitcoin personal finances. But the thing that I would say about, in terms of, getting into Bitcoin is, getting to that point where it's like, okay, I gotta buy $10,000 worth of Bitcoin, or I gotta buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin. No, you don't. Like, you don't have to go all in. And part of this is just getting into a saver and investor mindset as you're maybe stepping out of more of a consumer mindset. Consumer mindset is really what the fiat system, what the dollar, the euro, the money printing system does to our psyche. It's like we have to get as much fiat as we can because it's a melting ice cube, whether we're aware of that or not. And so the thing that you can start to use, and I talk about this all the time, these two great tools for daily personal Bitcoin finance are the Fold card, which is basically the closest thing to a Bitcoin checking account. You have an account number and a routing number, so you can use it for daily Bitcoin transactions. You can actually have your paycheck directly deposited into that, and so you can buy Bitcoin in the Fold app. You can sell your Bitcoin for fiat in the Fold app. There are tons of gift cards that you can buy. There's a daily spin. So this is a way for you to, and I think that this is an important part of the equation, is getting into the Bitcoin ecosystem and seeing how it works. One of the things that you have to keep in mind is that more than likely, if you're like the average Joe, like if you're anything like I am, I don't understand how the internet works. I can't TCP/IP like as a protocol. Like I couldn't really diagram that out or understand that. Same thing with SMTP or email. We all use email, but very, very few of us actually know how it works. I think that's sort of the phase, or this is the epoch that we're walking into with Bitcoin, is that because we're in this early majority phase of adoption, a lot of the people that are in that phase are not interested in, okay, I want to understand how a transaction works. I want to understand the inner workings of the blockchain. Okay, I want to set up a hardware wallet and learn how to self-custody my private keys, or I want to learn how to run a node so that I can verify all my, my own transactions. Now, we as Bitcoiners are hopeful that everybody that's getting into the space will ultimately want to hold their private keys, because not your keys, not your cheese, or not your keys, not your coins. But it's really unrealistic to think that everybody that is in this next two phases of adoption in Bitcoin are going to care anything about those things. Now, I think that, in the sense of, just having been in Bitcoin for over 10 years and having had these, truths, these behaviors of self-custody, having a hardware wallet, running a node, all those things, I think that that's really, really important. I think it's something that you don't want to skip. But you don't have to understand all that stuff to just get a Fold card and start spinning the wheel every day and getting free sats from that, getting sats back, getting cash back in the form of Bitcoin from your credit card and debit card purchases with either the Fold card, or like my wife and I use the Gemini MasterCard in tandem, and so we're able to double up on a lot of our Bitcoin acquisition that way, just in terms of savings account and all that kind of stuff. So so I think if you're if you're kind of new to my content in the way that I'm sort of like, I'm really interested in building a community here. Like I said, I've been a Bitcoiner for a really long time. I've learned in the past, over the past year or so that I think that we as hardcore Bitcoiners can tend to be a little bit dogmatic about certain things. And certainly those are important and we shouldn't stop being dogmatic about those. But I think in terms of trying to help the average person, this next wave of adoption, integrate Bitcoin into their daily personal finances. I think, getting them into instruments like the Fold card, the Gemini MasterCard, cashback. Those are instruments that we all use debit cards, we all use credit cards, we all use a bank account. And so that starts to show, a newcomer how Bitcoin can work with the pre-existing financial plumbing. Another thing that I'm talking about a lot right now is, if you're more of an investing, and especially if you're in like a dividend income posture, looking at the Bitcoin ETFs is a really, really important thing as well. So, you can look at IBIT and FBTC and VanEck HODL, their ETFs. Those are basically the ETFs that are going to keep up with, they're going to kind of run with the net asset value increase of Bitcoin over time. There's another class of ETFs that are income or dividend producing ETFs, and those are what are called covered call ETFs. So I started started dipping my toe in last month with BTCI, which is a covered call ETF that pays a monthly distribution. Because my wife and I we're in this place, and ultimately, like, especially if you get to 0.1 Bitcoin, 0.21 Bitcoin, you'll want to start some of the benefits that of owning and saving in Bitcoin in a more immediate sense. And that can be through these dividend ETFs. You can also borrow against your Bitcoin. I'm going to be doing some experiments around that as well. So if you're into this kind of thought experiment, like, hey, maybe you're not a Bitcoiner yet, but you're in the FIRE movement, or you're trying to, pay off debt. We're talking about how to do that as well. Or if you're a Bitcoiner that's like, yeah, man, I agree with you, Brad. I think that we get a little bit too big for our britches in the Bitcoin space sometimes. And I want to kind of, bring that down and be more welcoming to outsiders that are coming in, because ultimately, we want as many normal people using the Bitcoin network as possible. If the on-ramp is an ETF or a covered call ETF or the Fold card or a Bitcoin backed personal loan, what's another instrument? Leave some of those in the comments that I may be leaving out. But if you're in for that, I would invite you to subscribe to the channel. I'm going to have some community offerings here pretty soon. Just trying to figure out right now who it is that I'm talking to. So leave a comment, share this, like the video, and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.